Good afternoon and welcome to the weekly press conference with head coach James Franklin. We'll start with an opening statement from coach and then we'll go to Rich Scarcella in the Zoom.
Missed you guys. Why are you laughing so hard? First of all, I'd like to lead with sending our thoughts and prayers to Mike Hart and his family. You know, obviously Big Ten through and through as a player and as a coach, both at Indiana and Michigan. Obviously you don't ever like to see anything like that. And we truly wish his family, Mike, as well as the running backs and the players at the University of Michigan, our thoughts. So hopefully he'll be healthy enough to be involved in the game on Saturday. I hope I get a chance to see him before the game, but if not, wish him nothing but the best. Kind of moving on, obviously not going to backtrack too much. We met last week, but getting into the Michigan game and Coach Harbaugh, obviously got a ton of respect for Coach Harbaugh, for the university, for the program, for the venue. And obviously I think they got a lot of things planned for the game as well. So should be a great atmosphere. And I know our guys are looking forward to it and preparing for it. But you know, this is why you come to a place like Penn State to play in these types of games. Kind of when you get into them specifically, you talk about their offense, they have co-offensive coordinators in Coach Moore and Coach Weiss. Coach Moore's been on staff and been promoted. Coach Weiss, you know, is come from the Ravens. You know, they've had a you know, obviously a unique situation with the Ravens and his brother being the head coach there. Been a bunch of staff kind of back and forth between those two organizations, but got a ton of respect for what they're doing, how they're doing it. Extremely efficient. I think they do a great job of staying on schedule. First down is obviously a huge factor for them in their offense. And it's going to be a challenge. You know, they're able to run it. They're able to throw it. Obviously their offensive line was considered to be the best offensive line in all of college football last year. On top of that, they got, you know, maybe the most productive back in college football over the last couple of years. They got wide receivers that can make plays, tight ends that make plays, and a young and talented quarterback who's leading the nation in completion percentage. We know all about Blake Corum, and not only from what he's done at Michigan, but also obviously right down the street here. You know, played his high school ball in the Baltimore, Maryland area. Ronnie Bell, you know, has been doing it for a while and been successful for a while at wide receiver there. JJ McCarthy's obviously the new face, but extremely talented. Kind of already talked about him. And then, you know, they're similar to us, got a deep and talented tight end room. And although, you know, they've had some injuries there, you know, number 86, Shoemaker is playing really well for him. You know, on the defensive side of the ball, Jesse Minner, who I've known for a long time, comes from a football family. I've known his dad for a long time as well. Another guy that spent time with the Ravens, you know, last year was at Vanderbilt and now is back, you know, is at Michigan as the defensive coordinator. You know, also, you know, got a situation there. When you look at what they're able to do defensively, it starts up front with Mozzie Smith, who's a guy that we recruited extremely hard. That kind of, to me, anchors their defense. Their middle linebacker, number 25, we're really impressed with the production of Mike Morris at defensive end, is playing at a high level. And then their corner, DJ Turner. The thing that's maybe, I don't, you know if surprising is the right term, but with the departure of their two defensive ends last year that were so well thought of, for them to be able to pressure the quarterback and sack the quarterback at the rate they've been able to do it after losing those guys has been impressive. But it'll be a challenge, multiple fronts, talented talented secondary as well. They do a really good job scheme wise of putting their players in position to be successful. And then on special teams, again, consistency. Jay Harbaugh running the special teams has moved, over to the defensive side of the ball this year, was tight ends last year, and is doing a nice job. They have, pretty good personnel as well. Obviously, AJ Henning's a young man that we recruited heavily. That's their punt returner and kick returner, have been successful. Their kicker, Jake Moody, and their punter, Brad Robbins, are all playing at a really high level. Their punter is punting as well as any punter in the country right now. So really in all three units, you're going to have to be prepared and ready to play. We're going to have to deal with their personnel. We're going to have to deal with their scheme, and we're going to have to deal with the venue. So looking forward to the opportunity to open up the questions.
Start with Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle, and then we'll go to Mark Wogenrich.
Good afternoon, James. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You mentioned Michigan's pass rush. What makes that effective? And do you feel like you're better equipped to handle that pass rush this year, and why?
Yeah, I think we're better equipped, but I also think, they've done a good job of making people one-dimensional. So then you're getting in, maybe not obvious passing downs, but maybe situation where people, and I don't know if the score is always, mandated that. Some of their games it has, but, people have gotten away from the run game because they've gotten down by too many points. And whenever you're up by a certain margin, then you're going to get more, passing opportunities, which also creates more opportunities to rush the quarterback and pin your ears back. So that plays a factor into it, how the score goes. Very similar to, their offense and how they've been able to manage their offense over the last couple of years and be able to stay on schedule. If you're in third and short situations or getting a bunch of yards on first down, it helps manage that, for their offense and for their defense and what they're trying to do. So, I think we're better equipped to do it from a personnel standpoint, but I also think we're better equipped to do it in terms of not getting away from the run and being one-dimensional, kind of sticking with the plan.
Mark Wogenrich, all Penn State, and Frank Bodani.
Hi, James. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks. Appreciate it. With the offense this year, do you feel like you have a number one receiver this season? And if not, are you comfortable not having that?
Yeah, I think we got three guys that we feel, are that. And obviously Parker Washington, obviously, Keandre, who's coming back, and Mitch. And then there's some guys also that are coming on. Now, what we see in practice and what we've seen all summer is one thing. And I understand the question, the production and doing it consistently in games. And that's at the quarterback position, that's at the wideout position, that's at tight end, that's at protection. That's all of it, consistently making the tough catches, or consistently creating separation, or consistently making the throw. All those things kind of factor in, but we think we have three guys and possibly more that have the ability to be what you're describing. But obviously we got to get it done on Saturdays.
Frank Bodani, York Daily Record, then Mike Gross.
Hey, good afternoon, James.
How you doing?
Good. Do you think you are a better football team now than you were 2 weeks ago with the bye week there? And if so, how specifically do you think you guys have improved in that time?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've done a good job of doing self-scout and really kind of have a good idea of who we are, what are the areas that we need to work on, what are the areas that we need to build on. Obviously been able to take some time, going good on good at practice, and then being able to take some time and get a head start on Michigan. So I think all those things are valuable. Also the time off for the players, not so much for the coaches. I wish we could get a little bit more time off for the coaches. because also being rested physically and mentally is important as well. And the timing of it, is pretty good. We haven't always had great timing of the bye weeks, and this one's been pretty good for us. So managing that, one of the things we did this year that is a little bit different is our third practice. We practice Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That Thursday practice in the past had been more of a GA and non-travel practice from a developmental standpoint. And this year we did that, but we had everybody out there, all the players were able to get a head start on Michigan, with the coordinators and GAs and things like that. So we did add an extra day of meetings and an extra day of practice, although it was a jog through, more from a mental perspective than anything. So, and then I think on top of that, I think how we have played our guys since the beginning of the season, our depth is in a better position, not only that it's been in the past, but also how it's been from the beginning of the season. I think there's less question marks that you guys have as media and that we have as coaches of our depth, overall and at specific positions that you guys had a ton of questions about in the beginning of the season.
Mike Gross, LMP News, and then Donnie Collins.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. My colleagues have anticipated my questions perfectly, but let's go with this. Michigan has kind of settled on one now. Does that make them, it doesn't make them easier to prepare for, I guess, because he's played so well, but talk about the challenge of playing against him and what he brings to the table.
Yeah, I think it'd be different if they were playing both quarterbacks all the time, but it was really one game. The guy played the majority of the reps, and the next game, the guy played the majority of the reps. So you had a pretty good sample size of who those guys were, especially obviously, the other quarterback who, played an entire season. So I think the biggest thing for us and the biggest challenge for us is what I've talked about. They've been great on first down. And when you're able to run the ball and be as efficient as they've been on first down, they're able to stay ahead of the sticks, takes the pressure off of their quarterback, takes the pressure off of their offensive coordinator, because they're in favorable down and distance situations a lot. And that's a credit to their players. That's a credit to their coaches. And I think a big part of it is obviously, not only, Blake Corum, but really their running back room. They've had a lot of production out of those guys. So it'll be a real challenge for us. But this quarterback, I've been impressed with his poise. He is very poised back there. Obviously, he's been very accurate. And he can make all the throws on the field. He's got a very strong arm. He's got, real good, what, people describe as arm talent. And I think part of his poise is his confidence in his athleticism. He feels like he can stand in there. And if he gets pressure, that he runs well enough to run away from most people and avoid hits, able to run for a first down on the sideline and step out of bounds, but keep people on their heels. So that confidence that comes from his accuracy, that confidence that comes from his athleticism, and that confidence that comes from staying ahead of the sticks is what I think makes him and their offense challenging.
Donnie Collins, Scranton Times-Tribune, then Ben Jones.
How are you doing, James?
Good. How are you, Donnie?
Doing well. How do you evaluate the play of the offensive line in the first 5 games when you went and looked at it? And what do you want to see them do in the next 7 or so to get themselves to another level?
Yeah, I think it's like every position, it's consistency. There's been flashes of really good things that everybody's been excited about, our staff, our team, the fans. I think there's been times where, we've been really happy with how it's looked and how productive we've been. There's other times where we got to be more consistent and clean some things up, whether we're getting different looks or different fronts or pressures or run throughs. And it's like I've talked about before, those are opportunities for big plays, as long as we can identify those things, communicate those things, get a hat on a hat. And I think that's one of the things when I look at Michigan, last year and this year, it's their ability to get a hat on a hat, consistently. And there's a lot of things that go into that. Obviously your players on the field, your personnel, some of the things you're doing scheme wise, some of the things you're doing at the quarterback position, it's all of it. But for me, it's consistency, making the big block, getting a hat on a hat, but also now, blocking with a mentality and trying to finish people so guys can't fall off the block for a run of 4 yards. We're finishing a block. So now a ball carrier can turn a 4-yard run into an explosive run. But overall, I've been pleased. I think we're taking steps in the right direction. I think that group is starting to play with some confidence. And I think we're doing a good job of, again, staying balanced for as long as we possibly can and being, a little bit more unpredictable. I think there's some calls that happen and people may question why you're doing it, but at the end of the day, it's about execution. But it's also about keeping people on their toes. If you can run in predictable passing situations, and be efficient and effective, that's what you want to do, and vice versa. So try to be able to mix those things in as much as we can to keep people honest.
Ben Jones, statecollege.com, then Corey Geiger.
Hey, James, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm going to test your psychology degree a little bit here, I think. When you talk about goals you want to accomplish at Penn State, you guys have established over the years that you can beat the teams that you quote unquote, should more often than not based on talent and execution and programs and things like that. When it comes to these games that you say, this is why you come to Penn State, these are the same sorts of opponents that are getting in the way of what you want to do long term. What is your relationship like over years and years and years of being at the same place in these games with these games where you go, I kind of know it might come down to these 2 or 3 weeks every single year? I mean, how do you kind of grapple with that knowledge, knowing that you take every week seriously, and obviously you can't get to big games without winning the ones before them?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And I think, that's where it's not just the art, or the science, it's also kind of the art, because I think your point is a good one. We know that these types of games each year are critical, and we're not the only program in this conference or in this country that is in this situation. But I think your point that you made is also a good one, is if you put all your eggs in these games baskets, then you can put yourself in a situation where you don't handle the ones before that you need to, that everybody wants to look past. So that's kind of the fine line of managing those two things, doing everything you possibly can to get yourself to this position, and then also, being strategic as you possibly can to take advantage of these opportunities when they come. And that is, one of the things, Ben, that I think you guys have heard me talk about for a long time. That's where not only is this Saturday critical in terms of how we manage the game, and how our players go out there with the confidence and swagger to make the plays when they're needed. But it's also the thing that, we've talked about in the past, is it's all of the progress that you can make the other 364 days a year that add up. All those little wins add up all year long to put your team in the best position to be successful consistently on Saturdays in both games that you've described. And that's where I'm pretty excited, which I think you guys know. Pat's been great with those types of things. He's been really good at recognizing those things without me even having to say anything about it. And that's been great. I would say even all the way up to the president and the chair of the board as well. Whether it's Matt Schuyler, the chair of the board, or whether that's Dr. Ben DePuti, it's all of it. And I think that alignment that you've heard about is critical. Now, again, that's all great. Nobody wants to talk about that. We want to talk about Saturday. So at the end of the day, we got to do everything we possibly can to put ourselves in a position to get to this point where we are 5-0 with a top 10 matchup on the road in a tough venue. And we got to have an unbelievable week of preparation. We got to make sure that our players are approaching it the right way. I got to make sure that the staff is approaching it the right way to put ourselves in the best position to be successful on Saturday. And it's going to be a challenge. But to your point, this is why you come to a place like Penn State to play in these types of games. But we got to find a way to be successful. There's no doubt about it.
Go Corey Geiger, DK Pittsburgh Sports, then we'll open it up to the room here.
James, how would you evaluate your linebackers so far, and how important are those guys going up against a team that is going to run the ball a whole lot?
Yeah, I think as you guys know, we felt pretty good from an experience and from a production standpoint, about the two outside linebacker positions. But I think we probably feel even better because the depth that we've been able to create with Abdul, behind Curtis, I think has helped us. So I think everybody in the room would agree. I don't mean to speak for everybody in the room, but I think, most people would agree, that we're in a better position from that standpoint than we were coming into the season based on what we've been able to see and know up to this point. And then the biggest question mark was at Mike linebacker, and both Elsdon and Kobe have played a lot of football now. They're no longer first-time starters. When you get to this point of the season, that's no longer, something that is discussed or accepted to be talking about, well, it's your first year starting. We're past that point of the season. So they will be challenged in this game when you talk about the run game, the variety of the run game, the diversity of the run game, the play action pass off of it, and the talent as well. Their talent on their offensive line, tight end and running back positions have done a really good job. So I think we're in a much different position and a much better position than we were to start the season. And those guys continue to gain confidence and gain experience. And we're gonna need those guys to play really well on Saturday, based on what we've all seen on film.
Mark?
Thanks for your time.
You too, Mark.
How would you evaluate Sean Clifford's play through 5 games? And can you speak to the importance of having the best version of him going against this caliber of opponent in this environment, all those things you talked about?
Yeah, I think obviously, fair question. I think, kind of like we talked about the offensive line, Sean has done some really good things. I think there's some plays that he would like back. There's no doubt about it. But I think overall, the way he has managed our offense, whether it's the passing game and the protections, whether it's the run game and getting everybody on the same page in terms of how we're IDing the front. And then it's making those, 4 to 6 plays a game that you need your quarterback to make, that the media or the fan or the coach would watch the game and say, that was a critical play in the game that Sean was able to make for us. So I think, his entire career and his entire season kind of keeps building up and leading up to moments like this and opportunities like this. And but yeah, I don't think there's any doubt there's some plays that he would like back. There's some plays that we would like back, but him going out and playing well on Saturday, really all of our positions and all of our players, to win on the road against this type of opponent, we're going to have to play well. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And that also includes our quarterback.
Tyler?
Hey, James, pardon my voice. Salim Wormley was on the phone, Zoom with us today. And looking back at missing all of last year, I'm curious, what has his return brought to your offensive line? And what has he proven in these 5 games to you and your staff?
Well, I think the biggest thing is for us, we've essentially, the way we view him is we got a starter back, and I know on paper it may not necessarily say that, but my point is going in the last year, we had him penciled in based on how he had played in camp as a starting offensive lineman, offensive guard for us. So to lose him for the entire year, was significant. And then to get him back as a year older, a year wiser, a year more experienced, and for him to gain the confidence, in how he's played up to this point is extremely valuable. I think, whenever you're getting a guy that your team views as a starter, your coaches, the players view as a starter back, is extremely important. And he's smart and he's powerful. And he's played at a pretty high and consistent level. So, these games specifically against teams like Michigan, and these types of opponents, obviously we're going to have to make plays on the perimeter on both sides of the ball, but, being able to battle and compete, and win up front is going to be really important on both sides of the ball.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing good, thanks. Is there a mentality shift that kind of has to take place when you play a really physical team out of the bye week, when you haven't taken the field in 13 days, whatever it is, and you kind of know they want to run the ball, they want to control the game, they kind of want to punch you in the mouth?
Yeah, I think, that's where having a mature football team is really important. That's also where, having a Tuesday and Wednesday practice in pads where you're banging is important. And there's a fine line, right? Because, you want to make sure during the bye week that you do enough to get their legs back, so that we can be as fresh as we possibly can be on Saturday. But there's also, if you're not careful, you got to take care of those guys that bang every play as well, and get them feeling good and their bodies feeling good. So it's all of that. But having a mature football team doing enough of that stuff on Tuesdays and Wednesdays is really important. And there's that fine line between understanding how physical we're going to have to be to win this game, but also, putting our players in the best position to be as fresh as they possibly can be, so we can be explosive and fast and violent as well. That's where the experience matters, and that's where, having, some experts on our staff that can weigh in on those things are important too.
Daniel.
Afternoon, James.
How you doing?
Doing well. You mentioned when you're talking about the wide receivers, you said Keandre is coming back. Will you have him Saturday at Michigan? And then overall, just coming out of the bye, how do you feel this team has done with its health and avoiding some of those injuries?
Yeah, as you guys know, I don't get into a whole lot of specifics and details with injuries. I know, or I've learned over 9 years that you're going to ask anyway. But we're hopeful to have, Keandre for Saturday. We'll see how this works out. Sometimes it's challenging, even if I wanted to answer the question on a Tuesday, because it's still very early in the week. And then what was the other part of your question? Yeah, overall health, I think, knock on wood, we're in a pretty good place. And I think part of that is how we have managed practice. I think that is part of how our guys have done a really good job of taking care of their body. Hydration, nutrition, all those things have helped. As you know, we've had a bunch of discussions about nutrition as well and how that factors in. And then our ability and our willingness to play guys, the amount of reps that our too deep has gotten this year, is significant, and there's value in that. There's value in those guys gaining experience to create depth, but there's also value in getting your ones out and putting them in the best position to be as recovered and as ready to go the following week.
Neil.
Hey, James.
Hey, Neil.
You kind of made your point clear about opening on the road in the Big Ten and also the Auburn game, but do you think those two experiences will serve you well this weekend?
Yeah, I think it helps, obviously, because we've been on the road before in tough environments. I mean, obviously this is going to be one of them, but the experience matters. The understanding kind of what it takes to win on the road. There's value in that, but at the end of the day, all that matters is what we do Saturday, and having our guys ready and prepared for what that moment is going to be like is important. And I do think all your past experiences as an individual and as a player have a factor in that. But again, at the end of the day, we can't take any of the points or any of the interceptions that our defense got or any of those things to the game on Saturday. We'll take those experiences with us and the confidence that comes from it. But at the end of the day, we got to go execute at a high level on this Saturday and in this environment against these players and against this scheme.
Audrey?
Over here. James, Hakeem Beamon is somebody that obviously you guys mentioned you thought he was going to be a starter last year, but the way he's played these last 5 games, what are your thoughts on that? Because he had a pretty nice game 2 weeks ago at this point.
Yeah, he's playing well. He's a guy that we've had a lot of confidence in, for a long time. And Hakeem has grown in a lot of ways. I've gotten, I think, very close with Hakeem and his mom. We've been through a lot of experiences together, and ultimately I want what's best for Hakeem and I want what's best for our program. And I think those two things can be complementary pieces. And, when you're talking about a team like this and you're talking about, winning up front on the offensive side of the ball, with the O-line and the tight ends, and with the defensive side of the ball with your D-line and linebackers, having depth and having talent and having the skill up front that is necessary is going to be critical. And Hakeem's a perfect example of that. So, just like we talked about the quarterback and other positions, we're going to need Hakeem to play well, on Saturday. And I can say that about pretty much every position and every player, on our team.
T. Frank?
Hey, James, over here.
Hey, T.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. You talk a lot about balance on offense, and that's been a major theme this year.
It's really been a theme every year. We're just doing it a little bit more right now.
Right. And that's
Yeah.
the ideal, right? Is to have balance on offense. And usually we talk about it run versus pass, but balance within one of those facets, especially passing. How do you feel you've been there in terms of balance of attacking different parts of the field and being able to, threaten a defense in multiple ways? How do you feel you're balanced in that sense?
Yeah, I think we have to be more productive in the explosive, plays in the passing game. As if you kind of look at us historically, we've done a pretty good job of that. We probably wish at this stage that we've had a little bit more production. We're going to need that on Saturday. We're going to need more production down the field in the passing game. And that could be shots that are actually thrown down the field, or that could be making somebody miss and breaking a tackle and creating the explosive play that way. We lacked the explosive play in the run game last year. We get able to get that back. We were extremely explosive in the pass game. This past season, we need a little bit more of that on Saturday. So now that'll be this Saturday. That'll be moving forward. That's going to be important for us. So to your point, I think that's what you were asking. You obviously like to throw for a higher percentage and all those types of things as well. But being able to create explosive plays in the passing game is going to be really important for us this Saturday and moving forward.
Last question to Ryan.
Hey, James, right here in the
On
back.
the way back.
All right.
Hey, James. So you guys, since you've taken over, you guys are 2-5 after the bye week. What kind of challenges can the bye week kind of present for you guys? That includes the Illinois game last year. And also, what are you kind of doing to make sure you guys don't maybe come out a little flat on Saturday against Michigan?
Yeah, kind of things we've already talked about. I think, there's been discussion about studies that we've done in the off season. We added an extra day of practice. Staffing wise, we're able to be in a position where we have analysts and people that are able to get ahead for us and stay ahead. I think that's helped. And then also, like we talked about, this point of the season, about how we've rotated and played guys to be as healthy and as fresh as we possibly can be. Depth has played a part in that, in the past. So all those things, we spent a lot of time, talking about it and studying it in the off season and talking to different programs and different coaches and different sports scientists and strength coaches and all those types of things to put ourselves in the best position to go win this Saturday. But for me to sit here and say that we didn't spend time studying it and looking at it, that wouldn't be accurate. We spent a ton of time in the off season looking at it. And obviously the opponent factors into it. But we spent ton of time on it, and the things that we've already covered and addressed in this press conference, as well as all season, kind of answers, most of that question.
Thank you, Coach.